sure enough, my ACL was severed on both sides. So completely blew out my knee. And it took 3 surgeries later to be able to get it all fixed. And about another year of therapy. I kind of got addicted to prescription drugs because of the pain.
Wow.
I just
Okay.
mentally couldn't handle, what I was going through. Probably the physical pain was probably excruciating, but it was probably that more mental, emotional pain of just the woulda, shoulda, couldas, the what ifs. Your dreams just like flush down the toilet in an instant. And, it's like,
You're listening to When God Intervenes, the podcast where faith, hope, and healing come together for families with a loved one battling addiction. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of When God Intervenes. I'm your host, Daryl Rogers. Today I'm here with Ryan Reichert. And Ryan, man, it's great to have you here today. I can't wait to get into this. We've got some things in common, and I know we're going to have a good conversation. And I know the audience is really going to get a lot out of this. Welcome.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, Daryl. Ryan T. Reichert here, coming in from West Metro, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and so grateful to be invited on your show this morning. And for us just to get to know each other and work through some of the things in life that we all go through, and just really lay it out there, get to the, whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. And just looking forward to it. So thank you, Daryl.
We all have a journey, right? We all have a journey in life in a story. And, I laugh sometimes at young people that, there are people who are really young who've had some tragedy too. And you've had a lot of things they've been through, but a lot of people think they've been through something they just haven't yet. You know what I mean? They haven't really experienced the hardships of life. And, but I know you and I are old enough. We've been around long enough that we've been through a few things, right? A few twists and turns, and so I just want to learn more about your journey, and that journey toughens us up and makes us who we are today, and equips us to be able to help other people. And so I'm really interested to dig in and find out more about you. And so why don't we start with your childhood and what was life like growing up? Didn't you say you were from, you said North Dakota, right, originally?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So Hoople, North Dakota, it is Tatertown, USA. It literally, it says it on the billboard, 8 miles out when you're making the turn to, head north. And so it's a little village of about probably 350, maybe 400 people in its heyday. I believe it has gotten a little bit smaller, but we're hoping to grow North Dakota up because, the slogan is, be legendary, right? So Teddy Roosevelt, carry a big stick, kind of thing, and speak soft or walk quiet, however that works. But I look at it as, that small town was I want to say 99% Protestant, and I grew up Irish Catholic. So, pardon the expression here, but kind of like the bastard family of the town. And we had to go 7 miles to Crystal to go to church. And so right out of the womb, I was like, man, I'm, feeling a little, oppressed. And I know some people look at things a certain way, and how can that be, but religious oppression is a thing. And so as a young child, I felt that way. There was 2 of us in my class. My class was small when we started kindergarten, probably like 26 of us. And we graduated with 11. But there's only 2 of us that were Catholic. And so like in that, there is this ostracization of, who are you? You go out of town, you're not cool. It was also a large farming community, Frito-Lay contracts. So if you enjoy some potato chips, they came from the fields, the backyard kind of thing. But for me, I wasn't a farmer's kid. I was a business owner's child. And so that put me on that side of the street as well. And, Reicherts Insurance, my grandpa Reich, built that up, I believe in the 60s it was. And my dad, after going to Vietnam, ended up dropping out of school so he could come home and help his dad run the family business when he got sick. And, great thing. But I was kind of like, I never want to be that, I never want to be the businessman in a farming community, because I didn't have the courage to like be as strong as my father was, like every day to get up and have to, hustle to grind. But he did that for us. And, my mother was a school teacher. She was my eighth grade reading teacher. So I knew when I heard Ryan Thomas that I was going to be in trouble. And there's a lot of funny stories that actually come from that. And the good Lord's sense of humor. As I author a series of books today under the umbrella Our Protector Development, in third grade, I couldn't read. And I was going to get held back. I still remember it like it's yesterday. I'm sitting in the hall after school. Mrs. Ramsey, my mom and dad, are in there talking to her, and she's sharing, my reading assignments, in the obviously probably like single digit percentiles and, so on and so forth. And, everyone was like, you started reading when you were really young. I don't understand. Like, how is this possible? And I would always like pick books that had pictures in them, and I just tell a story and, kind of this fictitious like growth of, like blah, 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 so-and-so, 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 before third grade hit. And I was actually like, sought out of like, you're a failure. You can't do this. But my mom was a reading teacher. So her and, some other people, some other family members worked with me to be able to read. They didn't hold me back. And I just laughed today as, my master's thesis that I wrote 10 years ago, obviously to get a master's degree. This book series that comes out starting first book in 3rd June, but we'll get into that later on and can reel that one out. But so my childhood was really riddled with a lot of, kind of ups and downs. But the one that really derailed me was I was a freshman in high school, varsity football, made the varsity team. Small town, I know, but like it's still Friday Night Lights exists in North Dakota too. And it's one of those things where third game of the season, we're playing Walhalla, and it was on a kickoff too. This is what's so crazy is, Mr. Egan, guy that was a superstar, he obviously took the kickoff and he was burning it up the sideline. And, I tackled him. And when I tried to get up, I was like, whoa, what's wrong with my leg? And the guys are like, Ryan, hurry up, get off the field or whatever, you're on offense, not on defense right now. And I'm like, I can't, my leg's jacked up, and back then it was just like, rub some dirt on it, get off the field, we'll figure it out. And so I kind of, crawled, limped, whatever, over and, sat on the bench. And, coach was, asking the assistant coach, what's up, and I'm like, there's something wrong with my leg. And small town, it's not like we had like orthopedic surgeons or anything in Cavalier, North Dakota, but went up there the next morning, Saturday morning, mom, dad took me and, they did some x-rays or whatever they did. And, they're like, it's just sprained, no big deal. So I got like a knee sleeve or something, rubbed some, Bengay on it or whatever. And I played 3 more games until I couldn't straighten my leg anymore. And we finally went to Grand Forks, North Dakota, to, I want to say Altru and the hospital there, and got in to see an orthopedic surgeon. And sure enough, my ACL was severed on both sides. So completely blew out my knee. And it took 3 surgeries later to be able to get it all fixed. And about another year of therapy. Kind of got addicted to prescription drugs because of the pain. Wow. I just mentally couldn't handle, what I was going through. Probably the physical pain was probably excruciating, but it was probably that more mental, emotional pain of just the woulda, shoulda, couldas, the what ifs. Like, your dreams just like flush down the toilet in an instant. And, it's like, you could see it. I could see it on my dad's face of like, thinking, my son, he's on the varsity team, I was, he had, a football career, but, wasn't, anything as such. And it's one where you just, you start to doubt. I think, that's where it starts. And when you're, just like you brought up in the introduction, like, we think we've been through something. Yeah. And, to me, that was like the first real something.
Yeah, man. That's significant. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know
Hmm.
what would come next, right? And
Hmm.
all I could do is get up every day, and at first it was obviously just learn to walk again. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
you're only supposed to learn to walk once in your life, right? When you're like, I don't know, 9 to 16 months old, and
Mm.
basically, at I suppose 14, I'm having to learn to walk again, and mentally, I wasn't ready for that.
Mm.
But I believe it was the good Lord that was like, this is how I'm going to mold you into something. This is
Yeah.
how I'm going to develop you,
Yeah.
into something. And it did. I had to sit out the next season of football. I could play basketball with a heavy duty brace on my leg. Didn't play very much. I think it was on the junior varsity team. So from a pride and ego standpoint, you want to talk about seven deadly sin stuff. Boy, just riddled with it. And I believed when I think back, that's when I probably started to drink a little bit more. Because I just couldn't deal with that pain, that
Mm.
mental
Hmm.
pain, and I would numb it.
Hmm.
And so that childhood, gets us all the way to through high school. I did come back. I was the captain of the football team, and so forth. But I did get sick with mono my senior year, and I had to miss my senior year of football. So it's just this ups and downs and left and rights, but it
Yeah.
was all over choices I made because I was chasing a girlfriend or whatever that junior summer into my senior football year. There's a program called Sports Acceleration in Grand Forks, North Dakota, where you'd run on a treadmill, as fast as you could, kind of thing. Be part of the 20-mile-an-hour club. So you have to
Uh-huh.
sit on there for 6 seconds, and so I think I cranked it up to 23 miles per hour. You get your little cool T-shirt to wear around. But
Okay.
yeah, I was burning it at both ends. I'd work during the day, go to Sports Acceleration after work, and then stay in town as long as I could to visit this lady friend. And yet again, the good Lord's like, you can't do all this and not have a little bit of humility. And so it's like, I was struck with mononucleosis. I guess I think back then maybe they still call it the kissing, whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I certainly I got that, and I don't even think I played a game my senior year. And so you want to talk about just humbling, and you forget about these things. You forget. Gosh, it's almost 30 years ago. When you're like, I've been, I wasn't humbled in, when I was younger. I didn't go through things that were that hard. And gosh, at the time though, just like you said, it's the end of the world. It's
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
the
It
end of the
really is.
world.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing I take away for the younger folks that hop on this or hear this or catch a
Hmm.
soundbite, is this is just the beginning of your journey, and that's kind of where I always have struggled. Is I never enjoyed the journey. I would be like, I'll be happy when this happens. I'll
Right.
be
Yeah.
happy when this happens, and it's like,
Hmm.
think about just today. I mean, it's like got up, walked May, 3-year-old golden doodle that keeps me safe and gives me
Mm.
love on a daily basis. Went for a walk, had some coffee, read the Bible together,
Uh-huh.
talked to my partner in crime on the phone, and worked out a little bit, and then got ready for this. I mean, what a beautiful
Right.
day. This is part of the journey. It's
Right.
embracing this moment right now and embracing, like, I have no idea where our protector development is going to go as a business, but I do
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
that I got another child of God, Daryl Rogers and Ryan Reichert here together, and both of us are smiling. Like it's
You
pretty
you know
neat.
what's really interesting is like the more I listen to you, the more commonalities there are in our stories. There's so many things in common. One thing we don't have in common is that I grew up in South Carolina, and I don't know that I could. It would be tough for me to handle the North Dakota winters, man.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because I don't like the heat or the cold. Like as we'd say in the military, I'm a fair weathered ranger. So like when I went to ranger
Yeah.
school, it was I think March to May. So it's like the perfect season, to go. Like you're catching,
Mm.
it still might get a little bit of snow in the mountains, but Florida and Georgia aren't excruciatingly hot yet. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, I kind of laugh because I like Ron Burgundy a little bit. It's like San Diego, where the Reicherts kind of migrated to out of North Dakota in the '80s. But my dad stayed, so thanks, Dad. Didn't want to grow up in sunny San Diego, but Ron Burgundy says, like you stay classy now because it's 72 and sunny like every day in San Diego, and it doesn't
Yeah.
really change. Where I think yesterday, maybe I'm getting my days already confused, but we get a blizzard,
Hmm.
and then now it's going to be 65 today, and so
Right.
yeah, I agree that North Carolina is probably a little bit more predictable. I hope.
Yeah, we get a little bit of unpredictable weather too, but nothing like what you guys get. Yeah, and especially in terms of the cold. But yeah, man. So look, that I didn't play football. I played baseball in high school. And my mother, I wanted to play football, but she's like, "Oh, Daryl, you're too little. You'll get hurt." So, and guess what? I probably would have, but both of my boys played football in high school, and both have injury stories, and the youngest one, he ended up, he tore his ACL his junior year of college.
Okay.
So yes, basically sat out his whole senior year. So I mean, that is a familiar story when it comes to football, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but so I mean, and then we have your mom. Your mom was you said she was a high school, or she was a teacher, and you
Yeah.
couldn't get away with anything at school, right?
No. Uh-uh.
And so my mother was the secretary at the high school that I attended,
You really
and
not
so
get
I
away
couldn't
from
get away with
anything.
anything either. That's right.
Yeah.
um, so, but it sounds like, so take us from that into. I know we have the military. We both have the military background. I never served. I mean, I never served in combat. I never was deployed. It just worked out that way. Would have been happy to. Would have been honored to. But
Yeah.
but tell us about that part of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, that knee injury kept me from, I wanted to go to West Point. And so,
Mm.
back in, I suppose it would have been 96 time frame,
Hmm.
1996. West Point didn't have the waivers for, if you had, I have two screws in my knee, and so forth. And, it was back then they just couldn't waive it. And
Hmm.
so I just ended up going to the University of North Dakota, where a lot of our family, my mom and dad both went there, aunts, uncles, myself, my sister. And basically yeah, I just made that decision to go. And I was like, whatever, I'll figure it out. I'll go, get a college
Hmm.
degree. Maybe I will go back to Hoople and, work in insurance sales. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And, in that, my roommate, my freshman year, he took a military science class and was like, dude, it's an easy A, man. Like, you should totally do it. Plus, there's like good looking girls, and you get to rappel off the law school. You get to
uh,
shoot M16s. Like, it's super cool. And I was like, all right, I'll check it out. So my sophomore year, I took military science one, and started doing that. And sure enough, yeah, there was, got to rappel off the law building and shoot M16s. And I'd always like pass the secretary's office in and out of the armory, and they always had a sign like military scholarships, and money was getting tough. I was like, man, I don't know if I'll be able to continue on to get my degree, and I'll be just like my dad if I drop out and then I gotta go back to work in Hoople. Like, I can't do that. And so Trudy, she's still the secretary today, amazing. I went in and I sat down and talked to her, and she said, tell me your story. And I was like, I wanted to get in West Point, so I don't know if this would work, but here I am. And she's like, well, a lot's actually changed in the last couple of years, with waivers and so forth. Like, let's just
hmm.
apply and see what happens. And the next thing you know, September 15th, 1999, I'm raising my right hand, and joining the United States Army. I ended up having a 3-year ROTC scholarship, which was amazing.
Nice.
And
Hmm.
the next thing you know, I was heading off to Fort Benning, Georgia, second lieutenant Ryan Reichert, and falling out of airplanes, going to the infantry officer's basic course, ranger school, and then I went on to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, which sounds amazing. I know everyone's like, "Oh, your first duty station, Hawaii. I bet you that was awesome." And it was like, "Yeah," but a little thing called 9/11 had happened, and basically we trained for 8 months. So I was either at Fort Irwin, California, or in the Kahukus on Oahu, which is the training area there. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
5-6 days a week, every week, and then we went over to Afghanistan for a year. And when you say you didn't get to, it's like blessing and a curse, right? Like as an infantryman, I was like, yes. I think of Latimer from the movie The Program, like starting defense, yes. And unfortunately, once you've been shot at, once you've been blown up, once you crash in a helicopter,
Yeah.
you realize very rapidly that no, I'm good. I don't need to go through this again.
Yeah. Right.
Want to do this
I'd
again.
rather not be here.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you see like what can happen, with those who, unfortunately are injured downrange and also give the ultimate sacrifice and are killed in combat. And the grief, the loss, the pain that that obviously we as leaders go through, but also you just think of their families, all the wives, husbands, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, cousins, sons, daughters, whomever, like it covers them all, deal with it a
Mm.
different way. And, if you missed a phone call, and they went on and out on an op and they never came home, or they never gave you that letter, where it says, hey, I guess if you're getting this, we know this didn't work out the way we had planned. And,
Mm-hmm.
that just to me, especially as I led, more sons and daughters in combat, I realized very rapidly that, it just, everybody that we work together over the years downrange, it's one of those, once bullets start flying, if it's your first time, when you come home, obviously you kiss the ground, you kiss whatever, like you
Mm-hmm.
slap hands and we made it. And you're like, we don't need to go through that ever again. Like, I hope it never happens again. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
like when, people in relationships, I unfortunately this last year had to, go through the divorce process. And for me, that was the ultimate sacrifice, failure, whatever you want to call it, and of like loss in my life. And I think it's probably because I didn't want to become like my father, and I think about this today, as we'll get into it further down the road, of my alcoholism and my prescription drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see somebody in your life that, if it's your mother or your father, someone that's, an authoritarian figure, you look at it as, I want to be like them, but I don't want to be like them if they have flaws, right? Or they
Right.
fail maybe, or whatever we believe our perception leads us to
Mm-hmm.
that. And I look at it today as such BS, because like my dad, combat veteran, Vietnam, he's an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur with his father with Reicherts Insurance. And he's been sober 40 years, and the coolest thing is I'm sober with him now. And we have this relationship
Mm.
built off of, like, it's like a Greek tragedy, it's
Uh-huh.
this aspect of, in my second book, I call it, well, it's in the first book, but it really goes into more detail in the second book, is the Icarus effect, and how, our emotions play this massive debilitating effect on, however high we fly, because like it's like you get promoted like in the military, or you think about, in your professional past, anytime you have some success, or maybe it's even just like being a new father, having, I have two girls that are, beautiful young women that have grown to mature and be way more responsible than I've ever been, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously, still my little girls. But you see this aspect of, like, I would always be like, my dad was a failure, and I look at it today, I'm like, no, he's it's been such a miracle in the success story of, like, he, has had so many trials and tribulations and
Yeah.
painful things. And,
Yeah.
unfortunately, my parents did get divorced 23, I think, years ago now. And, for me, they separated literally right before I got married. I was
Hmm.
out training and gone for a couple months, and got a phone call, or I was it a letter that said I need to give unfortunately my ex-wife today a call. So this would have been probably like 2001. And I said, hey, your parents are separated. This might be a little awkward. We're getting married in like 3 weeks. And that was a big one. So I think I carried that through
Yeah.
my military career. Is like, I have to keep our marriage together, and I can't end up like like I can't become an alcoholic. I can't do this. I can't do that, because I'll be
Hmm.
just like my
Hmm.
dad.
Hmm.
And you know what? Today I'm just like my dad, and I'm
Yeah.
proud. I'm proud of it, because
Yeah.
he's never given up. I call it
Right.
today the war of purpose. It's like, what
Hmm.
is your purpose? Like, as a father and our father, he will protect us, and my dad's always done that for me. I just didn't want to listen. I didn't want to see it.
Hmm.
I wanted to
Hmm.
be, bigger than myself, right? Like, because
Yeah.
it's that
Yeah.
bravado. You
Yeah.
have two boys, and I'm sure, at times, like, they're like, come on, dad, like, like, we
Mm.
got this. And it's different, I guess, having two girls, where it's more, having that ability to, be a little bit more compassionate, a little more nurturing. I'm sure I
Yeah.
wasn't,
Yeah.
when they
Yeah.
in their knees, or, got a boo boo. I'm sure I came running to save them, be that white knight,
Hmm.
knight in
Hmm.
shining armor, and save them. I think that's what I always wanted to be. Seeing what my mom went through, I mean, I know there was many years post recovery with my dad struggling, and she just holding on for dear life, that he'd get better. He had
Uh-huh.
PTSD really bad from Vietnam, and I believe
Yeah.
a lot of it stemmed from his childhood too.
Hmm.
And I think
Hmm.
that's the same for me. Where you internalize that pain and
Yeah.
suffering. I know the first deployment to Afghanistan, came home, and I found myself, when I left, I was a rifle platoon leader over there for about half of it. And then the second half, I
Hmm.
was a rifle company executive officer.
Hmm.
And I came home, and it was like, hey, so and so is going to take over your executive officer position. You can just get ready to go to the Captain's Career Course in Fort Benning. And so I had about 3 months of just not doing a whole lot. And I found myself drinking a lot every day, sleep. I got depressed. I had no purpose.
Uh-huh.
I should have known I had a purpose. My purpose was to get ready for this next course, but
Hmm. Too
I
much
couldn't
free time.
embrace the journey, right? Like, I just saw
Yeah.
that the destination, I'll figure it out when I get there, as opposed
Hmm.
to prepping along the way, staying in shape,
Hmm.
staying out of the
Hmm.
bottom of a bottle. And yeah, I found myself in Fort Benning, Georgia for this course, and I failed the PT test. You know, you want to
Yeah.
talk about not waging war against your purpose,
Yeah.
not putting the work in every day to get there. And that could have been catastrophic,
Hmm.
but at the time, I mean, I got counseled, and it was like, now what? I was kind of on the fence of getting out. I was getting close to my 4 year commitment. And
Hmm.
our family, we just had our first baby girl. And yeah, it's like weird. We have these like different times where it's like, which road are you going to take, right? You can take the easy
Uh-huh.
road or the hard road. And people ask me that all the time, like, they're like, why do you always take the hard road? I'm like, I don't see two roads. I don't. Like, there's just,
Uh-huh.
the hard road, it is the shortcut to me. Like, that's like, if you go through that, like, you're going to come out with so many lessons that whenever you do make it to the ultimate destination, like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, when St. Peter's like there at the pearly gates, it's not like, like, all right, let's see how Ryan did over the last 99 years. Oh man, you got some time. You're not getting in today, kind of thing. And it's like,
Hmm.
if you take the hard road, you put the work in, you do right by, all of his people, all of his children, all of us. I think today that, it's, you already got that seat. You've repented through all your sins. Because I've hit them all. Not proud of many of the things that I've done. Obviously in combat, you have to do things
Hmm.
that you as a human being to do that to other human beings is terrible. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
look at it as a blessing. When you say you didn't have to go down range, Daryl, I think
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for
you
sure. Yeah.
volunteered to serve,
Mm.
this great
Yeah.
nation. You put the work in too, and the good Lord, said, "Hey, I got somewhere else I
Got
need
some
you to
different
be."
plans for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
I was in when Desert Storm happened, and we were getting ready to go. We got our training, we got some extra training, we got all of our shots, we got our wheels done, all of that, got our bags packed, and then boom, it was over. It was over so fast, and
yeah,
I didn't see the next thing coming. You know what I mean? And I had started a small business, and I'm like, yeah, this National Guard thing is taking up a lot of time, and so I got out.
yeah,
A lot of other things happened there, but you know, take me back a little bit, and then we'll fast forward back again, back to where we are. But I kind of skipped over the part about your knee because, man, I mean, it's impressive to me. That's a serious injury that you had, and how? Take me through that. How were you able to? And I know at that time, probably the technology was not nearly as advanced as it is now in terms of like some of the surgeries and all. But take me through the rehab on your knee, and how were you able to get from that point in high school to being able to go through the ROTC program and then into the military? And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
talk
I
a
mean, I
little bit
guess,
about that.
yeah, you just don't, I mean, I don't dwell. I've had so many surgeries and so many broken things that I've had to rehab. I've actually had to
Mm-hmm.
learn to walk more than three times in my life, I guess now. I did have Achilles rupture while I was on active duty too.
Oh wow.
But yeah, going back, when you're 14 years old, back then, I mean, my foundation, even though I'll joke about being Irish Catholic and, Catholicism a little bit, like there was a foundation there in my
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
not religion and spirituality, and I
Uh-huh.
think being raised in North Dakota when my dad sobered up, Sioux Nation, University of North Dakota, we used to be the Fighting Sioux. Now we're the Fighting Hawks. And so part of his journey in sobriety was he joined a lot of the different, Sioux Nation and different things. And he would do sweat lodges and he got extremely spiritual. Excuse me. So it would have been 85, yeah, 85 when he sobered up. And, so I was 6 and I was able to see that even though I was very, like off-putted by like, oh my goodness, like, this is terrible. Cause your friends are like, where's your dad going Monday nights or whatever? Like my dad
Mm-hmm.
says like, he's weak. He goes to some AA thing, and like
Uh,
real men stay down at the bar and I'm like,
right.
I
Yeah.
don't know, just like whatever. And so I got to see that. And so, I was an altar boy, I read at church, like so I was definitely the good Lord was watching over me, I believe. And I had, just this intestinal fortitude that was like, never quit. Before I blew my knee out that freshman year, I was the first guy to show up to practice to the school, get in the lockers, get all the equipment out on the field, and while the other guys, sat and, smoked and joked, as we'd say in the service or whatever, and I'd get out there, get everything set up, get ready to go, just like you'd see, anybody, Rudy, think of the movie, Rudy Rudiger,
Yeah.
like where, he little dude, and for me, that was just it. I just put in more work than everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
which got me, into the varsity lineup. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just like, hey, you're a freshman, you get to sit on the, keep the bench warm if somebody needs to come sit over here for a little bit. And, just, and yeah, coach was like, it came down to like after the summer setup for practice, he's like, you're not allowed to take the equipment out anymore. Like everybody else is going to do it because you have it all set up before even guys like get out of the locker room. And, you
Mm-hmm.
don't realize who's watching, when you're doing the
Right.
right thing, when you do the next
Yeah.
right best thing, like,
Yeah.
you got people that are like, man, this dude has got grit. Like this guy will
Mm-hmm.
grind. And I think that's what I did. It was like, I had a 40 time that was unbelievable. I had like four, I don't know, three or something when you're like 14. I had like a
Okay.
36-inch vertical. I hadn't even developed yet. I was just, a little boy. I don't know
Yeah.
if I still went through puberty or whatever because I can't grow like a real beard. But certainly for 14, it was
Well,
really
neither
good.
can I. So.
So it's amazing to like look back at that, and I had an amazing physical therapy program. So I have to just thank whomever that was because I certainly don't remember 30 odd years ago.
Mm,
And then the freight beer program, the sports acceleration program, doing that every summer,
mm,
was just unbelievable. And all our team, a lot of the guys that we played sports together, did that program, and it was, like certainly you talk about playing baseball. I laugh because I was football, basketball, track,
uh-huh.
and I wish I would have played. I played baseball when I was like in elementary school, but
Mm.
yeah, our guys, the Valley St. Thomas Blue Knights, amazing. While I was in high school, they won 3 state championships.
Oh, wow.
And so, you want to talk about like missing the boat, if you want the trophy
Yeah.
kind of thing. While
uh,
I was running around, the track and hearing about how awesome they were doing. But super proud of all those guys way back when. And, to see them today as sons, fathers,
mm,
leaders
mm,
in that community. Because, I mean, small town North Dakota, it's easy for it just to kind of blow away in the wind. We know North
yeah.
Dakota's got lots of wind.
Yeah.
And, the guys that stayed there and continue to make Hoople, North Dakota, Tatertown, USA, what it is today, I commend them
Hmm.
greatly, and just proud to say that I'm from there now because after seeing what some of the guys are trying to do and continue to do in just a place where now all our rivalry schools that we grew up playing sports against, everyone goes to school together, and like if football's with a different 3 other towns, it used to be like, well, I guess technically it was 3 towns growing up, so maybe it's like 6 towns. I don't know. Anyways, it takes a community, this connection to come together now and form something new. And I think that kind of,
Hmm.
is at a loss. We see, like I'm not a big person to stay plugged into the news because I believe like, think negative, get negative. So the news can be very negative. And I'm going to tie this
Yeah.
back to the knee thing in a second, where um, some of the studies, Harvard had a study out there where, we have, I want to say 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And I was an overthinker before, so I was probably on the high end there, and before I worked on my mindfulness a little bit, meditation and working yoga
Hmm.
into things.
Hmm.
But coming back into that fold, it's like 80% is repeating and like 90% is negative or something, so or vice versa. But anyways, if you have a negative thought, like it's just going to play over and over and over on repeat, and that's where everyone gets the woe is me, the poor me, the like
Yeah.
everything bad happens to me.
Yeah.
And I probably did that, many, many times. And that's where I'd go to drinking, or the
Hmm.
prescription drugs and abuse. If it's one Oxycontin a day, I'd have like four, kind of, and so forth. But in so doing, like I still wanted to be the best. And so like I never gave up.
Hmm.
It was 11 months of rehab, of solid rehab. And, just like today in my recovery from alcoholism and the prescription drugs, um, it's a one day at a time program. If you're rehabbing your knee or if you're rehabbing your mind,
Hmm.
whatever it is,
Hmm.
mind, body, and soul is that aspect of it. And I think at the time for me, it would have been like, I had my foundation and my spiritual beliefs at the time. I worked on my physical through rehab. And then obviously you're in high school, so you're working on your education and everything else. And those are the 3 wins that I kind of outline in my first book, God Only Knows When the Devil Comes for You, A Second Chance at Life. And when I look at, some people are like, that's such a cliche, that title, and it's like, well, sure, it's a cliche, but like any time that we have, we head down into that valley, like you have to have a second chance to, start working your way back up out of it. And,
Hmm. Hmm.
so my spirituality in it all is just like my knee injury. Like he was like, it's going to be really hard. You're going to have to put the work in every day if you want to even just
Yeah.
walk again. And,
Yeah.
but he knows what he put in all of us, our
Oh,
talents,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
purpose. I just look at it to me where it was like, my best friend growing up, Pat, him and I would play GI Joe. He had these two massive evergreen trees in his front yard. It was all the way down to the ground, so it's like perfect for like setting up an ambush, when we were like kids, people walking by the schools
Yeah.
across the street. And yeah, we would totally do that all the time. So for me, it was just natural that I would become a soldier, and God blessed me with being an airborne ranger in the infantry. I was a tier 2 guy, so I was part of like the 25th Infantry Division, the 2nd Infantry Division. I wasn't a 75th Ranger Regiment guy or Special Forces group guy in any perspective as an operator, as the tiers go. So those guys would be tier 1, super cool, smaller teams. For me being a tier 2 guy, it was a rifle platoon of 31 guys. Striker company commander of almost 200. And then being an operations officer and executive officer for a battalion, so around 700-800 soldiers. And
that's really cool, man. That is really cool.
Amazing, when you look at, I think all of us just have such an amazing story. I believe, when it comes now to starting to write books, it's like, I believe all of us have, a book in us. We have that story.
Yeah, for sure.
And it touches somebody. Like I've struggled with suicidal ideation, with my PTSD and not being enough. So it's like if you keep one person from, like, not to get graphic here, but keeping the pipe, the barrel, whatever out of their mouth and doing it, then that's a win. At whatever cost it takes. If it costs you some money to publish your book, and somebody paid $10 to read it, they're going through it, and I think that same way. Like you said, your son in college, like went through the same thing with ACL reconstruction. Like it's just, we don't know what's put in front of us, and what the next person's going through. And so, I really struggle with asking for help. And that's been the one thing through this journey that I've noticed I still struggle with, because I want affirmation that it's like, hey, will you read my book and give me some feedback, because I want to make it better for the next person, or if we do a second edition or whatever. And I don't realize when, if somebody asks me for help, it's like a need. I need to help them then if they're asking me for help. And I've kind of struggled with that, because you kind of run into where people get a little like, I want to write a book. And I'm like, I want you to write a book too, but I'm asking you right now for a little bit of help. Can you just take a little time? There's a lot of tools in it that could help you, will help me, and will help somebody else. And I think that's human nature. So you made me think of something that I'd like to ask you about. So you're talking about, it's hard to accept help sometimes, coming from my perspective, and you don't know my whole story yet. we could talk about it later, but coming from my perspective, I'm the parent of a son who suffered addiction. His was a mostly marijuana addiction, but so I work with parents, who have a child battling addiction, and so I'm just kind of wondering, from your dad's perspective, and especially for him, because I that's not a struggle I had. I've had plenty of struggles, but that's not one that I had. So, a lot of parents get over into enabling behaviors, rescuing, all of that. But how is it different maybe for you and your dad? And how did your dad handle that whenever he discovered that you had your own addiction? Yeah. So, a couple different things. Unfortunately, like our relationship was strained a couple different ways. I love my dad. We have an amazing relationship today, but and this is where I wasn't as strong and courageous as maybe I seem or sound. But in your marriage, you obviously have your spouse, and then we have children, and so they. For me, they come first. I'm sorry. It just is what it was. And for my dad, then, I had to put him off to the side just because he was a lot. And, some people can't handle a lot. Some people can't handle me because I can be a lot. And so in that, we kind of had, in the beginning, things were okay. Once we had kids, things
Mm-hmm.
changed. He made some poor decisions, with like, he smoked cigarettes, not the end of the world, but, when you're protecting your little kids, it's like,
Right.
hey, like there's this whole secondhand smoke thing, the
Yep.
carcinogens. We just need you
Yep.
to not do that. And, he couldn't make that sacrifice, to
Yeah.
spend time with his grandchildren over his addiction to nicotine and tobacco. And this is coming from
Mm-hmm.
somebody who, I chewed tobacco. I was a Copenhagen boy for, from 16 to, just this past fall, and I finally gave up Copenhagen, and I gave up nicotine back in November finally. So I don't know, however many months, doesn't matter. But today, anyways, I know I don't have a can of Copenhagen sitting here in my front
Right.
pocket and whatever. So I get that what some of the things he did or chose to do, like pushed him further away. So I don't think he ever was around enough to realize like how hard I was hitting the bottle, or
Uh-huh.
like anything else, I'd isolate and hide it. I mean, I don't think my family knew either, right? I
Mm-hmm.
would
Mm-hmm.
one, it made it easier when I was, still serving, like, having to get up at, I was a guy that would get up 3:30 in the morning, get ready for work, going to work 4:30. So I could get ahead of the boss because most of my bosses were just unbelievable. They were super smart guys, well read. That was probably my problem. I wasn't very well read because I was lazy and didn't realize like
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be the best,
Mm-hmm.
you got to put the work in, I mean, think
Mm-hmm.
about guys like Kobe Bryant, it's one of those aspects. I mean, he'd practice before the practice, and I
Right.
mean, look at him. And so that's the same, I think I was good enough, for the guys come in early and do that. And by the time though PT was over with, they'd be blowing my doors off, even though I came in so early to get stuff done and try to get ahead of things, that you got to continue to put the work in. You got to continue to educate
Mm-hmm.
yourself. You got to
Mm-hmm.
continue to develop yourself in such a way that none of the hard days win. They
Mm-hmm.
never beat you
Mm-hmm.
down to the point where you're so defeated that you allow that negative mentality to spin out of control. And so, yeah, for
So,
my dad, um, he just probably was always like, maybe it's not that bad. I've never,
mm-hmm.
like I know a
Mm-hmm.
couple times, Michelle, my ex-wife, she had called him and for help. Ryan's out of control. He's making a ruckus. Like you got to talk to him, kind of thing. And when
Mm-hmm.
that happened, kind of the joke of like once you let the vampire in, they can come and go as they please.
Right.
So he, there was a few times over the years that he was called to come down and help a little bit, but
Uh-huh.
I think for him it was probably just such a blessing. Like when I finally did sober up,
Yeah.
so 27 November of 2023 was when 26th at 5 p.m. I got a picture of it, my last drink, which was definitely not the thought of this would be my last drink. I think it was probably like, this is my last drink. I'll be home, from the bar here in a few minutes, even though I'd been saying
Uh-huh.
that all day long since the morning. And yeah, that's where the fracture in our marriage. I mean, our marriage was probably fractured well before that, but
Mm.
I made a lot of choices. If you're a biblical person, adultery starts with lustfulness. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I was somebody who had lustfulness it's a generational curse that probably goes back to, I don't know, maybe my great grandfather. I don't know. No one will tell me about it, kind of like, well,
Mm-hmm.
so and so did this and so did that. And now I get to be the black sheep to break this curse and tell everybody, on obviously the interwebs here that, yeah, like, I'm an adulterer.
Everybody puts everything out there nowadays. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, we talked about it
yeah.
before we came on the air, Dr. Jordan Peterson, it's like the greatest good comes from the truth. Like it's going to hurt
Mm-hmm.
and you're going
Mm-hmm.
to lose a lot. But you don't have to remember what you said,
Right.
whatever, because
Yeah.
the truth is the truth.
Yeah.
And if people want to try to defend that with lies, let them
Mm-hmm.
defend it,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have to remember what happened, because like the story's never changed. And
Yeah.
so,
So,
yeah, but for my dad, I think it was a struggle to know
uh,
that like he thought we were probably the most unbelievable team, seeing it from afar. And we had, well, just like everybody else, our struggles, but we just didn't put God between the two of us, first,
okay.
so today I would look at it as like in my own living, it's, God first, my addiction second, and then significant others or friends, family, or whoever come third. And
Mm-hmm.
it's that balancing of the teeter totter. So, Ryan's on this side, everything else is on this side. If I don't have God in the middle, like, we're going to go, flying through the sky because it's going to tip
Mm-hmm.
over one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been, my bedrock today is just knowing that as long as I give all glory to God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, I have the dream team. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For
it's
sure.
pretty
Yeah.
amazing because it's that spirituality that I talked about before. It's, being one with nature, being one, with the spirit of another human. So
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes I look at it this way. We have, we'd like to be human beings, but unfortunately, and even myself, human doings, right? Like we're so caught up on what's our calendar say we're supposed to do next. Oh, I just bought this sweet brand new like truck. I can't wait to tell everybody about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we have this amazing family trip coming up. Like I can't wait to share my pictures. And we get so caught up in doing that we miss like the aspect of presence and being. And that's where I found myself, like I was telling you earlier, Daryl. Like it's this destination, destination, destination.
Yeah.
You miss the beauty of the journey. It's
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. That's very true. It is really all about the journey, right? I don't know if I heard this part yet or not in your story. Take me to what was the turning point for you with your addiction that led to you getting sober?
yeah. So I would say we kind of got to go back to my last deployment. So I was advisor for the Saudi Arabian National Guard, and that's like their elite unit in Saudi Arabia. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a team that's been advising them since I don't know 1970 something. And
Mm-hmm.
anyways, I was 2019. Was fortunate enough to be with a small team over in Dammam, Saudi Arabia, and Abcake was bombed. So a large oil refinery just up the street from where we were living, and that brought my PTSD back to such a point that I mean I didn't sleep for days. I was ordering NyQuil to be shipped on in so I could drink that,
Mm-hmm.
to put me to sleep. What's the little gummies you can take or whatever to sleep? I'm trying to think of the name of the stuff.
Melatonin.
There we go. I was
Yeah.
eating melatonin gummies like a little 2 year old would with the
Yeah.
little gummy bear fruit snacks.
Uh-huh.
Nothing would work. And, I was sitting there with my M9, my 9 millimeter Beretta on the coffee table, and I just couldn't take it. I don't know, how many days I'd been up. My
Mm-hmm.
insomnia was just riddling me, just fear, just to the
Mm-hmm.
core. And I was ready to pull that trigger, and there was a knock at my door, and it was my master gunner. And we weren't supposed to go out till the next day on an op to link up with our brigade. And yeah, he's like, hey, just I need some sugar.
Mm.
And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. And to think how the big man works to synchronize everything in such a way that
Mm.
whatever. And obviously after that, I came back, sat down, I saw it, and I was like, what the, what, and things didn't go away, but I knew I needed to do something about it. And I
Yeah.
started just walking around our little compound, super small, so I don't know how many laps it took to like make a mile, but I was like, I'm gonna do 10,000 steps a day. And I don't think it started with 10,000. It probably started with 8,000,
Mm-hmm.
and the next thing you know, yeah, I'm doing 15,000 miles a day. I'm swimming again, lifting weights again.
Mm-hmm.
And, pulling myself out of, this pit that I put myself in because I let fear, the lack of control that I would have between the Houthis and the Iranians, dropping bombs, out of the sky or blowing things up in the area. to ruin me, kind of the,
Mm-hmm.
not today, Satan, not today, or not tonight,
Mm-hmm.
Satan, not tonight. That's to me, whatever that fear, whatever that struggle, whatever that pain, to me, that's Satan, that's that doubt,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
fear, that, so, it doesn't have to have horns and, a tail and
Yeah.
a
Right.
pitchfork or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's fear and doubt.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
devil. And,
Yeah.
so, getting your mind strong enough, you just have to like, do the work. This is the biggest muscle in our body. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
does everything
Mm-hmm.
for us. So if you're not exercising that thing, reading, writing, learning something new, and then,
Mm-hmm.
getting out, doing something physical, and then something spiritual, it's just one of those things. Like, you don't have to have this God, Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit, like I do. Like, you just have like a higher power, a creator, something that you can talk to, pray to, ask for help, because maybe you don't have a circle that people can help you in because you haven't found your people yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so in that, I was able to work myself out of that. But when I came back, I said, I'm going to get help in so doing. And I started with my insomnia. I had a sleep psychologist, so I did have to get on medication initially to help with that. And I was
Mm-hmm.
teamed up with some folks that worked on your circadian rhythm and like, hey, like don't go to bed at like midnight every night. Try to like ratchet it back a bit. And
Mm-hmm.
just continue
Mm-hmm.
to do the same things day in and day out. And
Yeah.
sure enough, like I, went from like sleeping an hour a night to, 3, then 4, then 5, then
Mm-hmm.
6.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've never been somebody to get up to 8 yet, but
Right.
we'll keep working at it because I'll take more than an hour a night because that certainly wasn't conducive to my health. My blood pressure was off the charts. My esophageal encephalitis, my GERD, like all the, I was on a dozen different medications
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I was so afraid of just not whatever could happen next, and it's all out of your control.
Yeah.
And so we decided to move from Fort Lewis, Washington, which is south of Seattle, about an hour. That's where we were going to retire. I was going to be a financial advisor for Edward Jones, my best friend. Like this was a plan, like, I don't know, 15 years in the making, maybe. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and COVID happened on that deployment. And the family was like, hey, we want to move from our retirement house in Washington to Minnesota because the family had visited, our family back here in North Dakota and Minnesota. And the girls' best friends were retiring from the Army as well with their dad and moving to here to
Okay.
West Minneapolis. And, I was still in a deployment, so I was not in the right mind to say, yes. And I'm sure there was a lot of explicit language involved in my reply.
Mm-hmm.
But we ended up, my mom got sick and I couldn't come back, fly back from Washington to North Dakota and had to make some hard decisions. Thought she was going to die. And it was one of those aspects where she pulled through. But that made it a lot easier to make the decision to move to Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
retire here, and start our civilian journey. But
Yeah.
that wasn't
Yeah.
without certain costs. I had to
Uh-huh.
ask my best friend, who I told that I wasn't gonna work with. That was hard because he invested a lot of time and money, thinking that this was a decision we had made, many years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
So that was tough. And then I had to ask them, could I live with you for 6 months? Because I'm going to move my family to Minnesota and I can't afford an apartment here plus their apartment while we build our new retirement house. And I think in all that, more fear, more doubt, like, am I going to have a job like when I retire? Like, what's going to be the job? Because this is like a leap of faith. My faith wasn't
Mm-hmm.
very strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the bottle. I had all those drugs already, that I was taking for everything. And then I just was like, well, we'll wash them down with some beer and bourbon. That's the best way to do it. And I was just miserable. I was just a mess. And
Yeah.
it just got worse and worse and worse. The idolatry, idolizing, like we built a really big house. We put a pool in,
Uh-huh.
bought a really nice boat, put it on the lake here, where everybody goes.
Uh-huh.
We were so
Uh-huh.
cool. Family trips, every other month because started making more money. So yeah, the good Lord blessed me with the Fortune 500 job I wanted.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but I was making more money than, I was making in the military, and I didn't know what to do with it then. I'm like, wow, you get a
Mhm.
bonus
Mhm.
every year? Like, that's never
Mhm.
happened, and so, yeah, bought a luxury car for the wife. We were still married, cars that you could have had 4 cars for the price of, just these things
Right.
that were just so disgusting.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I found myself being so sick and tired, so sick and tired,
Mm.
And my
Mm.
psychiatrist, when I finally told her I was sobered up, she's like, I'm looking at all your stuff, and it doesn't really look like you would have had a drinking problem. Like, and I was like, I've lied on every alcohol drug intake I've taken
Mm.
for probably since I started taking stuff when I was 14 years old. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
and yeah, it was the point. Mondays and Fridays, you could work from home, so like you drink while you're on a Zoom call at work or Teams call, whatever it was.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'd stay up all night long watching like football games I missed from the weekend, while drinking. And it's just gross. It's just disgusting. And I think,
Mhm.
the good Lord just like shot down a lightning bolt right into me, that night of the 26th of November, and was like, you know what, bud? I'm going to help you out finally. You've broken them all. You've went through all of the 7 deadly sins, so we don't have to
Mm.
worry about that. Check, 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 check.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're going to head to a meeting Monday night, the 27th of November. And at the time, I was like, okay, sounds good. I know my dad went to AA meetings in Grafton, but let's see what it's like here in Maple Grove. And yeah, I went, sat in the back. When I remember it today, like I think it was like super dark and gloomy and filled with smoke, which is not the case. But like in my mind, that's what I thought, because I was so depressed and so riddled
Uh-huh.
with anxiety still. And I sat there. I just said, hey, I'm Ryan. I believe I'm an alcoholic, and a prescription drug addict, and I need help. And I just sat there and listened. And come to find out, there's a few guys that were actually ex-military, which made it a little easier afterwards. They talked to me, but
Mhm. Mhm.
before that, they were like, we challenge you to come back next week. And I was like, that's all you have to do. When you asked about like getting through therapy and everything, I'm like, just challenge
Mm.
me. Challenge accepted. Like I will
Yeah.
toe the line. I will. I think of the movie like 300, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, and this aspect of like, I'm ready to go. Put me in the game, coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did. I did 90 meetings in 90 days. I
Wow.
got a sponsor right away.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and I started going to retreats, which is amazing. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, you don't have to have money. Retreats sound so like sexy and bougie.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, and 9.5 times out of 10, like they have scholarships for guys. Like I still had my Fortune 500 job, like so I had money I could go to the pay, but it was like, hey, put a little bit more money in to support these guys that can't afford it, or coming out of treatment to go on these different retreats. And I think that's when I had my first spiritual awakening. It was probably 60 days into sobriety, and was with a good friend. Actually, he's my little brother now. I mean, I don't have a little brother for real, but he is my little brother
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
And I see so much of myself in him. It's scary, knowing that I'm like, trying to drive the car, being like, okay, come on, like don't go down that road.
All right.
But he's amazing. He's got a beautiful family. I'm actually Uncle Ryan to his kids, which is pretty special since I'm estranged from my sister and my 2 nieces. So I still get to be
Mm.
an uncle today, which is pretty special. Yeah, we can be so destructive in our choices that
Yeah. Yeah.
it takes some pretty special human beings to want to either come back into your life, when you
Yeah.
just destroyed it, or even having new folks come in and like not allow your past to come into the dialogue, right? Like you can tell your
Mhm.
story, and it's like, people hear words like alcoholic, prescription drug addict,
Mhm.
adulterer, I don't know, divorcee, whatever the different, terms are. And you get these labels, and it's like, that's just yesterday. Like, let's
Right.
just
Right.
worry about the present.
Yeah.
Let's focus on, learning from each other. I just think of like the amazing dialogue. You and I don't know anybody from anybody. And,
Right.
we're just having a wonderful
Yeah.
conversation. Beautiful Tuesday
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm just tying it all back to that where,
Mm-hmm.
you just really, it takes a lot of work no matter what you're doing. If you're working on your addictions, like, or like I was like 50 pounds heavier than I am right now, like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it was like 17 months of, becoming a civilian to sobering up. It wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
this like 17-year long drawn out thing, right? I went from being like physically fit, I don't know, mentally sound. I don't know, that might have been a different, day, but
Uh-huh.
to, yeah, like 50 pounds overweight, like, not being very accountable in anything I did, lying about everything. And then, having to come out of that. And today, I can't, like, if I tell a lie or whatever, like, I gotta like apologize for it. Like, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
do some step 10
Yeah.
work, we call it, making amends. And
Mm-hmm.
it just gets in the way of keeping my side of the street clean. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in that, that's what it takes. And that's hard. That's sometimes every second, every breath, having
Mm-hmm.
to go like, get me through this. Like, a number of podcasts ago, yeah, I would have been like praying, going like, man, I can't do this.
Something you mentioned was about, kind of like people putting labels on you, where you're talking about kind of that's who you were or that's in the past. And I talk about that a lot where we tend to, and for my audience, which is a lot of parents, as parents that have children battling addiction, they tend to, we have regrets, and we're living in the past. When we're talking about regrets, you're living in the past and you're saying, well, maybe I could have done this different. Maybe I could have done, if I had been a better parent, if I had done this or if I had done that. And to begin with, probably none of that really matters. But even if it did, there's no perfect parent walking the earth. And you can't change it. It's in the past and you got to leave it there. And the same is true with the future, particularly when speaking about parents in this situation. It's like a lot of times they have worry, which is just fear projected into the future. Well, if I do this, that might happen. Well, you don't know what's going to happen. you
No.
know, um, so it's really a lot about living in the present today. There's a lot to be said for that. And not getting caught up in the past and too much about the future. Of course, you want to make plans for the future, but you don't want to get so worried about things that are out of your control. But so it sounds like you didn't go to. You never went to a traditional inpatient rehab facility or anything like that. God spoke to you one day and said, Ryan, it's time to get sober. And you just went to AA and you just started going to meetings and doing your work. And that led to your sobriety. And now, tell us about the work you're doing now and your books and your website and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, two things I do want to, like, before I head into that, I
Okay.
love that, is to know more and more about your story and who you help from the perspective of the enablement side of things. Because, like, if there's anything I could tell parents, is you got to give space between you and your children for him to work. And I know that's extremely hard. We got to give up that control,
Yep.
because for me, both my girls, there was an estrangement. Like, I wanted to get all the truth out there, thinking like the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. And their little minds, and where they're at in life, they not ready for that. But at the
Right.
same time, know that he's got them, and all I have to do is do the right thing. And
Mm.
like, people mirror ourselves, right? Like, so like for me, like, we weren't a family that, went to church regularly. I bought my first real Bible. I had a combat Bible I could put in my pocket and keep me safe
Hmm.
downrange. But my first real Bible just this past July, so it hasn't even been a year. And, it's that aspect to see my girls today. The oldest, who's in college, goes to church. at the university. I'm just blown away by that. Like when I was in college on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, it was not going to church. Thursday nights, her little sister drives down to go to Bible study together. I'm just like, this is so cool. And you see just what the work they're doing with their community and working, all things that I enabled. Like I was like, well, I'm going to make sure my kids have cars and they don't need to work and like all this stuff. And all I was doing was getting in the way of the good Lord doing his work to keep these kids strong,
Yeah.
like in the addiction side, just like you asked about my dad, was this aspect of like, he knew like over time and space, if he would just stay out of the way, like sooner or later, like
Yeah.
I would find my way back.
Yeah.
And, that's just something that's so hard to do. I know we struggle, right? No one
Mm-hmm.
wants to see their children like go through it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
all you can do is pray and give the space necessary and, bring in some teams, some people outside of you, because like as parents, like today's like the first day of me being me today. So I don't have the right answers. And I certainly have screwed up a lot of things over time and space. But yeah, today, our protector development is kind of what I like to call you got the spiritual side. Our protector is the good Lord, it's Jesus
Mm-hmm.
Christ, his son, and the Holy Spirit. And then you have obviously the science side of myself, 23 years of U.S. Army service. You get somebody who's got 4 combat deployments and a lot of strategics tools, either from Fortune 500 America, the United States Army and all its schools, and then plenty of other joint and foreign services that I've been a part of. So whichever side of the street you want to take your direction from, I think that I've been placed in a unique situation. A small group leader at Eagle Brook Church here in Wayzata. So it's pretty cool. We got ground zero, junior high, but I teach the 6th graders, which unfortunately for me was when I started drinking, was in 6th grade at 12.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I see these little guys and I'm like, I can't even fathom because they don't talk about any of that stuff.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They're not talking about, getting into trouble, alcohol, drugs, girls, anything. Like they're worried about
Mm-hmm.
like playing a pickup game of basketball before we start service. And do they get candy afterwards? Those are the only 2 things they care about,
Right.
And I think that's such a blessing because,
Yeah.
I didn't grow up on that side of the street. And it was probably
Mm-hmm.
because my surroundings had either, my dad not drinking. So I'm like, oh, well, all the cool kids, their parents do drink, so that's got to be better. Or, do you get into pornography or smut mags or whatever? Because, I didn't, run into that, but other kids did. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
cool, and it's just these things that you find yourself in these situations. If you have that stuff around, do you not expect your children to not get into it?
Right.
Like if
Right.
our
Yeah.
side of the street's that messy, like when
Mm-hmm.
people drive over onto our side, they're going to pick some of that mess up. It could be your
Yeah.
kids, could be your friends, could be your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
your significant other, whoever that is. But yeah, if it's messy and dirty, like that's going to get on them or vice versa, or it's going to get on you if you're on their side of the street. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, basically from that side, leader development's huge to me. Just multiple leadership positions in my life. And then it's also, our protective development. We got the way I look at it, I'm the chief executive officer, but it was co-founded, the Trinity and I, put it together. It wasn't just me. As you work
Mm-hmm.
through mindfulness and meditation, you have this ability to kind of hear the Lord, and stay out of your own way with it. And if you're doing the right thing, the right things happen. So I actually have 3 books. The first one, God Only Knows When the Devil Comes for You, A Second Chance at Life, will be out 3 June. So you can pre-order that on Amazon.
Oh, cool.
And then the other 2 books will be out sometime later this summer. Don't have dates yet as they
Mm-hmm.
continue to go through
Mm-hmm.
that process. But our landing page is www.ourprotectordevelopment.com. So you can at least get in touch with where you would like to email. Would you like to set something up? Just have a talk like Daryl and I are doing today. It doesn't cost anybody anything. Just 2 children of God getting to know each other, or I'd like to say brothers from other mothers.
Right.
And then, basically, for me, I'm starting to learn social media. wasn't a social media guy at all,
uh,
but I believe it's Instagram, you can do the @our protector development and follow us
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
I think that just links to the Facebook page as well. So,
Okay.
and then, yeah, I think that's about it to try to get a hold of me. But, I couldn't thank you enough, Daryl, for just the opportunity to get to know you, to be on your platform, and just have a great conversation this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great getting to know you. And we'll have to do this again and get to find out a little bit more about you. You're a really interesting guy. And I like, the military background and all of that. We have a lot in common.
Yes.
And I haven't even had a chance to touch on all of it yet.
So, I'd love to have you actually on our show, Our Healer, Our Protector with Ryan and Lisa. That
Okay.
started. My partner in crime today, Lisa, a nurse of 25 years here in the Twin Cities. Her and I started, Our Healer, Our Protector with Ryan and Lisa. And I think we got about 4 episodes that'll be coming out here in April. So, yeah, certainly, Daryl, I'd love to have you on our show as well. Because,
okay, we'll have to do that. I appreciate that.
I can pull out of you or whatever, knowing that, you're pulling out of me here. So it's awesome.
So before we sign off here, so give me that date again, the sober date, because that was the date that God intervened, right?
Yeah. So the 26th of November, 5 p.m. was my last drink. So 24 hours later, 27 November, 5 p.m. is my sober date. And it is every day has been a miracle since. It's just we should have never met, put it that way, right? Like, it's one of those aspects. Without that catalyst,
right?
The journey would not get us here. And so it's so beautiful, it's so amazing. And, I can't
sure.
I want to help in any which way, because I, as a parent too, I don't want any other parents to have to go through probably what my mom and dad went through, nor do I want children to go through, like, having a father with addiction, right? And maybe some of the pain that I caused them.
Yeah, well, we all have our journey, and we live in a broken world. We're all flawed people. So, hurting people hurt people, and that's just the way it is, and so we all grow from those things. If we embrace the pain and are willing to dive into it, and develop that relationship with God through Jesus, So, man, it's been great having you on, Ryan, and we'll do this again. Thanks again for being willing to be a guest and let me interview you, and so great to get to know you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daryl, so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to When God Intervenes. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more families in need of hope and healing. For more resources and support, visit our website at thefamilyrecoverycoach.com. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.